is the first weekend of the year where garage sales are happening, so come with me and see what we could find. The first thing I found was this Princess Peach plush, but when I flipped it over, I realized it was a backpack, so I didn't end up grabbing that. Then I saw Horizon Zero Dawn for the PS4. $10 isn't a bad deal, but I already have the game, so I left it behind. Then I kept looking here. There was a huge stack of DVDs and Blu-rays. I was hoping there was some games mixed in, but unfortunately there weren't. However, I did end up finding these boxes filled, filled with Skylander figures here. Some were $5 each, some were $3 each, and some were cheaper than that. But I didn't find anything there, so I moved on to this garage sale where I did end up finding at this table this headset mount for the Nintendo Switch. I figured I'd grab it. They said $2. It's brand new. Why not? And then I found a few VHS here. I didn't find anything worth picking up. So the only thing that I found at this place ended up being this headrest Switch mount. I think this is going to be funny to use for a video upcoming, so I ended up grabbing it. They only wanted $2 for this. It was still sealed. Unfortunately, it looks like it's kind of an unbranded one. It says Prime Kinect, but I've never heard of that brand. But for $2, I figured I'd pick this up and give it a try. But we've got more garage sales, so let's get back out there. Then I ended up at this garage sale, and I kind of walked through here and was like, okay, well, I didn't find anything, so I thought this was going to be a straight-up bust. But then when I was walking back towards the front of the garage to get out, I did end up spotting some Xbox One games here on the right. I don't know how I missed them the first time, but it wasn't anything that I had to have. Rage, Resident Evil, I've got both of these games, so I left them behind. And then when I turned around, I noticed there was a Switch case here for $4. Unfortunately, I have a few of these, so I just left this behind for someone else and headed into this next garage sale here, where I wandered back towards the garage, and I ended up seeing on this table, when those people left, there was a few games here and there, a few game-related stuff, and then I found this Xbox One Kinect here in the box from GameStop, and it even had the power adapter here. I walked up to them and said, how much? And she said $20 for both. And then I said, would you take 10? And she said, well, yeah, we're not using it. So I ended up getting both of these for $10, which is totally dope. First off, obviously, this is a GameStop Xbox One Kinect, which meant this was pre-owned. But when you opened it up, everything was here and everything was in good condition. It has a Control Freak sticker on it, but other than that, I probably wouldn't even realize that this was a used one. It looks brand new. But then, speaking of brand new, right below it was this Kinect adapter, which was $40 new, which is just crazy to me. But when you opened it up, I checked everything was in here, and it was, so I was good with that. Honestly, there's not much to show you here other than the cords, I guess, and there's some paperwork. But for $10, this is definitely well worth it. I think the Kinect by itself is worth like 25 to 30 bucks. And then I think this is another like 10 bucks. So let's say this is worth like $40 that I spent $10 on. I am not complaining. This was definitely well worth picking up, but we still got more places to go. Then I went up the street here and I found this garage sale. Unfortunately, I went up and walked around and didn't find anything. But their neighbor right next door actually had a bunch of stuff, so I figured I'd show it. I at least tried to go to this one and didn't really find anything, but the neighbor ended up having some really crazy stuff, and that ended up being some Guitar Hero guitars here. These are both for the Nintendo Wii, which is absolutely awesome because that means that these do not need dongles. So I kind of wandered around to see if there was anything. There was a bunch of like electronics here, but nothing else that was gaming related. So I ultimately ended up grabbing those guitars and saying, hey, how much do you want for these? And the guy said, for both of those, I would do $5. So, as fast as I could, I ended up getting that $5 out of my pocket and handed it to them and made my way to the car with these guitars. And this was definitely well worth picking up. Now, honestly, These guitars are even better because they are, like I said, the Wii ones, which means they don't actually need dongles. You just put the Wiimote in right there, and that means that you can play this with any Wii, basically just slapping the controller into it, which is totally amazing. And if you look these things up, if you were trying to sell them, which I'm not, you would probably be able to get like 30 or 40, maybe 50 bucks each. So that's like, let's say 75 bucks, which I ended up only spending $5, which makes these definitely well worth it. And this one has a ton of stickers on it, obviously, but for the $5, you know, I had to pick this up, and I was super stoked because the first place didn't really have anything, and then I walked next door and saw these and was like, okay, I am buying these, and I am so glad that I did because these were definitely well worth picking up. That brings me to this last garage sale that I ended up going to for the day. This one I saw on Facebook Marketplace while I was out garage sailing, and it said that they had video games. So I made my way to the garage where I saw the pictures where the games were. And lo and behold, back here in the very back on this table, they had some video games still. Now, the first thing you obviously notice is this Xbox 360, and I ended up grabbing it, but this PlayStation 4 game was alright. However, I ended up offering them $30 for this Xbox 360 bundle, and they took it. They had it listed for $40, and I said, would you do 30? And so I came home with it. It actually ended up being a really good deal. I got 2 controllers, which is totally awesome. Both of these work. I've already tested everything. And then we've got the game here, which still has the sticker on it, and that is NCAA Football 14 on the Xbox 360. Like a year ago, this game was like $100, but now that the other new college football game has came out, this game right now is currently worth around $25 in this condition, so definitely well worth that. And then we have the console itself, which is the newest Xbox 360, I believe. This is the E. Everything here works. There's no disc in it, unfortunately. This is only a 4 gig one, which again is all right, but for 30 bucks, I cannot complain. The game itself is almost worth that, and the console is probably worth like 70 bucks maybe in this condition with the 2 controllers. Now, they didn't have a cord for it, but it does just use HDMI, so I'm not too worried about that. But overall, I feel like we found some good stuff here. Now, I know it wasn't anything crazy, but starting off, we found that Switch headrest, and then we ended up getting that Kinect, which was pretty cool. The 2 Guitar Hero guitars and this Xbox 360 right here made going out to game hunting well worth it today at the garage sales. For the first time this year, I've seen like 1 or maybe 2 garage sales, but this weekend was when everyone was out selling at their garage sale. So I ended up grabbing some awesome stuff. I definitely think it was well worth picking up. There's nothing here that's crazy, but it's just to prove that you can go out game hunting and still find stuff in 2025 for good deals. Nothing here was crazy overpriced. The most I spent was 30 bucks. So I feel like if you go out to garage sales, eventually you will find something good, and I feel like this video showed you that. But I'm going to get out of here. I've got some cleaning to do and some more testing on those guitars. So check that video out if you haven't already. But honestly, I feel like it was a pretty good day. I definitely do feel like this Xbox 360 was the best deal. And I'm kind of shocked that it was still at this garage sale because it had been on Facebook Marketplace for like 3 hours. But enough about that. I'm going to go get this cleaned up. So I'm getting out of here. So check out that video out if you haven't already.